4.5 project ideas. The following week, Mr. Leva gave us a math quiz. We had spent the first week reviewing last year's math, so he wanted to see how much we remembered. The quiz wasn't too hard. It had addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and some easy algebra, like 2x plus 9 equals 45. I breezed through until I reached the word problems, which I absolutely hated, especially when it had "please show your work" in the instructions. A blue car and a red car at location A. The first problem read, they both want to go to location B, which is 60 miles away. The blue car leaves at 1 p.m. and drives 20 miles per hour, while the red car leaves at 3 p.m. and drives 30 miles per hour. Which car will arrive first? Please show your work. Of course the blue car would get there first because it had a 2-hour head start. I didn't need an equation for that. It wasn't as if the tests were asking about that fable with the turtle and the rabbit racing each other. If that were the problem, I'd have to figure out how much time the rabbit wasted as it took naps, ate snacks, and played Wii. But this was about 2 cars with full gas tanks driving along the same road. I could solve it with common sense. The bad news was that Mr. Leva didn't give credit for common sense. He gave credit for showing work. What work? I just couldn't see it. This was a classic example of somebody making something harder than it really was. Besides, who cared what time the blue car got to location B? I mean, whose car was it anyway? And where was location B? What was it? A store? A park? A friend's house? I felt so confused. Thank goodness the bell rang. If I had to spend one more minute thinking about word problems, I'd lose all my hair. See you later, Derek said as he rushed out. He'd been talking to me every day now, and was now numero uno on my boyfriend wish list. I grabbed my things and headed to the door, where Mr. Leva stood to collect our papers. When he saw mine, he said, "You didn't finish." "I got stuck on the word problems," I explained. He seemed surprised. "But your sister," he began. "What about her?" I interrupted, not meaning to be rude, but unable to stop myself. "I'm the dumb one, okay? She's the one who was born with all the brains." "That's not what I meant," he started to say, but I didn't wait around. I left as fast as I could and hurried to the restroom so I could calm down. The entire first week of school, teachers oohed and awed about my sister. It made me so angry to hear about her in every class. I literally had to cool down, so I splashed some water on my face. As I dried off, I caught my reflection. Today I wore my Siamese twins t-shirt with 2 Siamese cats instead of 2 people joined at the hip. It's what people thought about Carmen and me, that we were twins, exactly the same like the cats are joined at the hip like best friends, and all because we shared a last name. Luckily, Mrs. Gardner never compared me to my sister, which was another reason to enjoy our class. I stepped in and took my seat beside Patty. She said hello, and so did Gumwad. Today his mouth was blue. I always checked the color of his gum, just like I checked the color of my mood ring. I couldn't help myself. After taking roll, Mrs. Gardner said, "Every year my students do a service learning project." "What's that?" Gumwood asked. "Is it a paper or a speech? Are we working in groups or alone? When's it due?" Mrs. Gardner raised her hand to silence him. "A service learning project," she explained, "is one that helps the community. Activities like cleaning up a park, reading to preschool kids, volunteering, or organizing a fundraiser." "Great," Patty whispered to me. "More chores, only no allowance." "At least you'll get to help people," I offered. "Why would I want to help strangers? I barely want to help my friends." I turned my attention back to Mrs. Gardner. "Anybody have ideas?" she asked. "Can we look for dogs?" Gumwad asked. "That would be helping the community, right? Finding lost dogs so little kids won't cry." "That's a good idea," Mrs. Gardner said. She wrote it on the board. Then she asked if we had other suggestions. Lots of hands went up. Someone wanted to start a community garden. Someone else wanted to teach people about recycling. Another wanted to paint over graffiti. While the class brainstormed, I wrote "service learning project" on a piece of paper. Normally I got excited about projects like this, but I also had study math, read 3 poems for English, fix the toy train Jimmy broke, and remind Dad that we're almost out of toilet paper on the list. "Erica," I heard. I looked up. Mrs. Gardner was staring at me. I'd been too busy with my list to notice that she had called to me. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "Do you have any ideas?" she asked. I looked at my classmates' suggestions, but none of them interested me. Then I thought about my promesa. How perfectly it fit. "Does walking a 5K for cancer research count?" Mrs. Gardner nodded, but then she said, "Maybe you can do more than walk. Maybe you can get people to sponsor you. That way you can raise more money and increase awareness." I glanced at my moon ring. Bright blue for happy. Of course I was happy. Here was the answer I'd been looking for. was going to ask for sponsors, lots of sponsors. It was the perfect service learning project and the perfect promesa for Mom. Later I met the Robins in the cafeteria for lunch. Only the second week of school, and we had already staked a claim on our table. As soon as Gumwad joined us, Shantae saw his tray and said, "You do not have Jell-O. Can you believe I had a dream about that last night? Seriously, I dreamed that you got blue Jell-O, and I remember thinking, Gumwad doesn't like that flavor." "You're right, I don't," he said, but it was the only color left. He stuck his fingers in his mouth and pulled out his gum. "Guess it matches this," he said, showing us the slobbery mass before sticking it inside his milk carton. Patty was mashing her peas, but when she saw his gum, she said, "Really? You're going to make us stare at that while we eat?" "You don't have to look at it," Gumwad said. "I look at everything that's gross. I can't help it. I see someone with a giant oozing zit, and guess what? I stare. It's human nature." "Hey, this isn't a zit," Gumwad said, all offended. "Maybe not," Ileana interjected, "but it is kind of gross." "Amen to that," Shantae added. "Fine, then," Gumwad said. He wrapped it in a paper towel and left to throw it away. "All better?" he asked when he returned, and the rest of us nodded. "Guess what?" Ileana said, all excited. "I had a close encounter of the third kind with Alejandro. He asked me if I've seen any movies lately. Do you think he's trying to ask me out? I mean, why else would he mention the movies?" She reached in her purse, took out a compact, and checked her mascara. "Do you think he likes my thick lashes, or should I put on more mascara?" "No," Patty, Shantae, and I said in unison, because Ileana had gobs of black around her eyes. "Are you girls going to talk about boys again?" Gumwad asked. "That's all you ever talk about sometimes." "If you don't like it," Shantae said, "sit somewhere else, but before you do, consider this. If you pay attention, you'll get special insights about girls. You'll be the only guy in school with insider knowledge about the mysterious workings of a woman's mind." Gumwad thought a minute. "You make a good point." "Of course I make a good point. I'm going to be captain of the debate team this year. It's my job to make a good point." She then turned to Ileana. "So what else did Alejandro say?" We spent a while hearing about Ileana's close encounter, and then we moved on to other topics. That's when I said, "I figured out my service learning project and new improved promesa." My friends leaned forward to hear more. "I decided to get a lot of people to sponsor me for the 5K. All they have to do is sign their names and make a donation." "It's a great idea," Ileana said. "I'll be your first sponsor." "I'll sponsor you too," Shantae said, and Gumwad also agreed. "That makes 3 sponsors so far," I said. "I'm off to a good start." We all stared at Patty, expecting her to donate too, but all she said was, "How many people is a lot?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I guess I should be specific." I glanced around the table. 5 Robins, 500 names. "I hereby promise to get 500 sponsors for the 5K. 500 people, Patty said. "Are you crazy? It's easier to get 500 people to play off their toenails than to do something nice like help a real cause." Ileana sighed. "Don't you believe in anyone?" "Absolutely not," Patty answered, mashing a few more peas. "If you ask me," Shantae said, "getting sponsors is a great idea, and 500 is even better." She took a sip of water. "So you want to know what I'm doing?" She and Ileana had Mrs. Gardner too. "I'm going to educate everyone about the upcoming election. I plan to design brochures listing this year's hot topics and what each candidate believes. Then I want to do a YouTube video of random people to get their opinions. Finally, I'm going to collect links to articles and post them on my Facebook page so everyone can keep up to date." "Sounds like an awful lot of work," Patty said. "Sounds like fun to me," Ileana countered. "Especially the random people part," Gumwad said. "I like helping random people. That's why I'm going to look for lost dogs." Patty poured milk into her mashed peas. It looked totally gross. Then she turned to Gumwad and said, "You're not looking for dogs because you want to help people. You want the reward money. Why don't you admit it?" "I'm not doing it for the reward money." "Sure you are." Gumwad plopped a fresh gumball in his mouth, even though he hadn't finished his lunch. "I know what it's like to lose a pet," he said. "How you're always wondering what happened. Did he run away? Did he get hit by a car? Did someone steal him? And I see these poor dogs running around, probably trying to get back home, so I don't care about the reward money at all." He seemed a little mad, so I said, "I wouldn't blame you if you took it. After spending all day in the heat, you deserve a little reward." "That's not why I'm doing it," he insisted. "I know," I said. "You're doing it because you're nice." He smiled, and his dimples looked really cute. Then he blew a big orange bubble, and when it popped, gum got on his upper lip. He licked it off, which was really gross in my opinion, especially since we were at lunch table. Well, I came up with an idea too, Ileana said. I'm going to volunteer at the hospital by playing with the little kids. Some of them have to stay for a very long time, and they get bored. Besides, I want to marry a doctor someday, so this will be a good experience. But these kids are in the hospital, Patty said, which means they're sick. They have diseases, and diseases are contagious. Do you really want to get some awful disease? You might get sores on your body, or your arms and legs might swell up. You might have to eat through a tube for the rest of your life. The only doctor you'll have a relationship with is the one who's treating you. Quit being so negative, Shantae scolded. You're really getting on our nerves. Yeah, I said, you have a criticism about everything. So tell us about your great idea. It's obviously better than what we're doing. I don't have any ideas, Patty confessed. We spent a moment thinking in silence. What about picking up garbage, I suggested. She shook her head. I'm supposed to do a narrative. How can I write a narrative about throwing away trash? Don't throw it away, I said. You want me to keep it? I thought I was the one with a dark sense of humor. I'm serious, I went on. Use the trash for something else. That's a great idea, Ileana jumped in. You make art every semester. You can do something artistic. Patty tapped the table for a few times. I'll think about it, she said. We eventually moved on to other topics, mostly glancing around to see who had changed the most. Some guys, for example, were cuter this year, or they walked around with more confidence. A few boyfriend-girlfriend couples had broken up over the summer, while others had gotten together. With so many changes, we definitely had to revise our boyfriend wish list. A large group from a nearby table stood to return their trays. That's when Shantae spotted my sister. Every table in the cafeteria was rectangular, except for the circular one Carmen picked. She would sit at the only oddball table in the room. After all, she was wearing that silly school uniform again, and had already earned his nickname Miss Prep, as in prep school. Your sister's so cute, Shantae told me, with that fancy uniform and her suitcase. But it's got to be hot under that jacket, Patty said. She probably has big underarm stains from sweating a lot, and that suitcase must weigh a ton. It is hot in that blazer, I said. I keep telling Carmen to wear normal clothes, but she won't listen. And that suitcase is full of books. Too many books for a normal backpack. She likes to pretend she's in private school instead of with the rest of us dummies. Sure she doesn't think we're dumb, Ileana said. I shook my head. She doesn't think we're smart, that's for sure. She looks so focused, Shantae noticed. It's like she's working out problems while she eats. She's counting, I explained. Counting? Yes, she counts how many times she chews. She won't swallow till she reaches a certain number. What a chore, Patty said. She can't help it. Ever since my mom's operation, she's been counting. It drives me insane. I knew I shouldn't tell everyone about Carmen's quirks, but I couldn't stop myself. We can't take her to the grocery store anymore. Too much stuff to count. Once she wouldn't leave till she counted all the bananas, the ones in the fruit section and the ones by the cereal. Maybe counting makes her feel better, Ileana said. Instead of stressing out about your mom, she counts. It takes her mind off things. I shrugged, I guess. It must be tough, Ileana continued to be so smart. That's tough as being the sister of someone smart, I said. Ileana ignored me. She started to wave Carmen over, but I grabbed her arm before Carmen noticed. What are you doing? I asked. Trying to get her attention. She looks so lonely all by herself. Well, that's her fault, I said. She can get her own friends. If she's smart enough to do advanced math, then she's smart enough to meet people on her own. I must have sounded angry because all the Robins, even Patty, looked at their plates and stayed silent. They were not about to disagree with me.